Hello everybody, happy Sunday. Thank you for being here. Appreciate those of you that show up in any capacity as always. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to start off with an announcement about next week. So we're here today, but next week there's not going to be a meditation, so there won't be an intention, and then there won't be a meditation on Sunday next week. I'll be out of town, so I won't be here for that. There will still be a weekly video, so you can still find that on YouTube, and then we will reconvene the following week. So that is, what, like July 7th or something like that. So we're here today, and then we will not be here next week. That's June 29th, 2025, and then we'll be back the following week, the first Sunday in July, right after the 4th of July holiday. So right on that weekend there. So just want to start off with saying that. I'll have a reminder on the page too about that. But yeah, I won't be around to do a meditation next week. So hope everybody has a wonderful weekend next weekend. So let's get into this week. I have the intention up here already, so you can see that if you haven't already. This week, the intention is nice and short, but very powerful. Rejuvenation emerges. Rejuvenation emerges. And I'm really excited about this. We've had really the last two lunations, the Gemini lunation, which we are just finishing. The moon is waning into the dark moon. We have the new moon in the sign of Cancer popping up here this week that we're going to talk about. So really the Cancer and the Gemini lunations have been ones that lots of people have had their eye on, including myself. So this week coming up is just really a nice week. I think there's a lot of potential for what we have going on here, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about that. So I'm going to start by just bringing up the chart like we have been doing for just a moment here. So that way we can just look at the transits that we're going to look at here. There's a couple other ones that we're not necessarily going to talk about. So remember that the full breakdown is always in the weekly video. And then just kind of like the key transits are what we look at here within the meditation, the ones that kind of pop out and guide the intention for the week. So the first thing that we are going to look at is the conjunction between the Sun and Jupiter this week. So we have that coming through at the beginning of the week. If you look at this chart, you will find Cancer on the 8th house. So if you find the number 8 in that middle ring there, that'll show you where the 8th house is, and that's the sign of Cancer in this chart. The Sun is at 1 degree and Jupiter is at 2 degrees in this chart. So they are moving towards a conjunction right after this, just as the Sun is moving into the sign of Cancer, which came through Saturday with the summer solstice. So we see that the two of them will conjoin on Tuesday at 3 degrees of Cancer. And then the day after that, we get the new moon in the sign of Cancer. I can just roll it back a few hours here so we can see. There we go. Okay, so it lands in the first house in this chart, so find that number 1. It's on the left side there. It'd be in the rising position in this chart. You'll see that we have the new moon at 4 degrees of Cancer. So on Tuesday, we have the Sun and Jupiter making a conjunction. That is the Jupiter Cazimi. That is a resetting moment for Jupiter as it comes across the conjunction with the Sun. And then the very next day, we have the new moon at 4 degrees at the very next degree. So the Jupiter-Sun conjunction is very much built into the new moon that we have coming through here this week. You'll notice that there's a sextile from Mars. We talk more about that in the weekly video. Mars is at 4 degrees of Virgo in this chart in the 3rd house. So those are a couple of the things that we are going to be talking about, as well as if we bring this chart forward a little bit more, we will see that Mercury enters the sign of Leo on Friday. So Mercury is at 0 degrees of Leo in this chart in the 2nd house. And notice that the moon is sitting right there with Mercury as it moves across. So as Mercury moves into the sign of Gemini, so does the moon. So that's an interesting little nod, and just kind of ups that energy that is coming through here. So those are the main things that we are going to talk about, as well as we still have the square coming through from Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries. We've talked a lot about the squares. So if you find Aries in this chart in the 5th house, it's on the right towards the bottom there. We've talked about Jupiter making squares to these planets. We've talked about the Sun making squares to these planets in the weekly videos and here last week. We still have that square exact here between Jupiter and Neptune today, and as you know, as the Sun moves up a couple degrees, it's going to make that square this week as well. So that is something that we're also kind of considering here this week. So we have a few things. We have the new moon in the sign of Cancer. We have the conjunction between Sun, Jupiter. We have Mercury moving into the sign of Leo. And then we still have this working square between the planets in the sign of Cancer and the planets in the sign of Aries that are coming through here. So those are the few things that we are considering here with the meditation and with our intention here. So rejuvenation emerges. When I looked up the definition of like rejuvenate or rejuvenation, I found the action or process of giving new energy or vigor to something, or the action of restoring. So rejuvenation brings this idea of something coming back, right? There's something that's returning, something that has been there before. It makes me think of like some sort of cycle, or bringing something back into strength, or bringing something back into power. And then the word emerge makes me think of something new, like re-emergence would make me think of kind of like rejuvenation, you know, something that is like coming back into power, coming back into strength. So within the intention, there's this idea of something coming back and something new. So I kind of like playing on that here this week. When we have Sun and Jupiter coming together in a conjunction, we have a resetting moment for Jupiter. We have a resetting moment and a new cycle starting in regards to our beliefs, in regards to the knowledge that we hold, the wisdom that we hold, the truths that we know, the different philosophies that we subscribe to. So that's where our beliefs or our morals fall in, our religious beliefs or our spiritual views. All of those things are Jupiterian in nature. So we have this in a resetting in the place of Cancer, the place where Jupiter is uplifted. It's in its exaltation, and that's because Jupiter is a sign that, or is a planet that likes to grow things, likes things to increase. And Jupiter, or Cancer, is the sign of the moon. It's the place of the mother. It's the place of nurturing. It's the place of tender love and care. It's the place of holding on to and nurturing, so that there can be a safe space to return to, and a safe space to be able to grow from, and a safety net that you can fall back on, a place that you can come back to. We also, you know, we sometimes get with the moon, and then sometimes within the sign of Cancer, we get the qualities of family and ancestry, and you know, kind of where we came from and our memories and things like that. Those are all lunar, moon, and Cancerian type qualities. So we have a reset for Jupiter in this place. So as far as our beliefs and the philosophies that we subscribe to, the knowledge and the truths that we have, there's a place where we can have this restart and usher something new in. But it's in a place where there can be some nurturing guidance. There can be some holding. Like, I think of holding space when I think of a Jupiter Sun conjunction in the sign of Cancer, like holding a space for something new to emerge, but maybe not necessarily emerging in a very like like not a fast way, in a slow way, like a caring, tender, we're going to take the time to take the steps that we need type of way. And then we have a new moon coming through here right at the same time. That's another resetting moment. So we have this rejuvenation or this resetting of Jupiter and of the lunar cycle both starting here this week. Starting something new in the sign of Cancer. Wherever Cancer is within your chart, there are new things budding, new things that are blooming here. And the new moon in the sign of Cancer is all separating from the square, both Jupiter and, if we pull the chart back up here for just a moment, you know, we talked about the squares from Saturn and from Neptune here in the sign of Aries. So the new moon is at 4 degrees, right? So it's like they're still in the engagement range for the square, but they're starting to separate. They're starting to pull away from. So as this new moon is coming through here and this new resetting moment for not only just the lunar cycle and whatever is seeding here, but what is seeding in our bigger beliefs, our bigger philosophies, the world, the way that we view the world, the way that we, the esteem that we hold, all of these things can be Jupiterian, but we're coming right off this square to Neptune and to Saturn. So there's been a look and there's been a calling into question of the systems and the paradigms. You know, with Saturn, with the things coming through to Saturn, they can be a little bit more heavy, can be a little bit more weighty and looking at things at a little bit more serious tone. And then the squares to Neptune, they can be a little more imaginative. They can be a little bit more free-flowing and allow us to dream a little bit more. So there could be this tug and pull for some people between like wanting to let your mind move up into the clouds, but also feeling like you need to keep your feet grounded at the same time here. So as we have this new moon coming off as like a separating aspect from all of that, just kind of pulling away, as we've had the systems and the frameworks and our, you know, what fills us up and what lights us up, where the inspiration is in our lives, it has been called into question. And now there's this place where we can have any new emergence that comes through there. We're able to look at what we've been called to examine and then see where we can move forward and where we can start something new or move down a new path or just start to find our way towards whatever the new path may be. And it could lead to maybe some sort of rejuvenation if there's been some difficulty or struggle, or it feels like maybe the square has been a little hard for you to like get going or keep going, or it feels like it's kind of slowed you down in a way. You know, we've just went through Jupiter being in Gemini for like a year, right? Now we have approximately about a year of Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. Jupiter in Gemini has probably learned a lot. Jupiter in Gemini brings in lots of information. It brings in lots of little pieces and it dissects the information that it brings in. So there has been lots that has been gathered, lots that has been brought in, and maybe not all the pieces fit together, but we have lots more pieces now. We have lots more information. Maybe we have some more understandings. It seems like Jupiter in Gemini can, I know in my own life it has, can bring in, or has brought in, since this is past tense, we've made it past this transit, Jupiter and Gemini can bring in lots of understanding of the way things work, looking at the systematic approaches and being curious about the ways we can change the different systems and we can change the different routines. Maybe we can be flexible and we can try something a little bit different. So there's been lots of different things coming in with Jupiter moving through the sign of Gemini. Now Jupiter has recently moved into the sign of Cancer, a place where it's a little bit more dignified and it's a little bit more, feels a little more natural where it's at. So Jupiter and Gemini brought in lots of little information, lots of little pieces. So now how can we take all those little pieces, all that information, and how can we bring them together in a cohesive way to create something? How can we find a nurturing space to take all of the different information and bring it together somehow. Can we find ourselves in a place where we can maybe rest and we can find a safe space to look at all the little pieces and take our time putting together different ways, you know, kind of like a puzzle where you might try a piece someplace and it doesn't quite fit, so you put it back and then you grab something else and see if they fit together, and then, you know, eventually you'll find where that other piece that you sat back down goes, and you'll make all of the different pieces work together. But you may need to be in a space where you can be cared for and nurture that and allow the space for it to unfold rather than like forcing it or pushing it to unfold. Cancer can be that place where things can be nurtured a little bit. And when I think about Cancer nurturing, I think about how it's the cardinal sign that leads us back into the darkness or the lack of light coming back in. I think about that summer solstice moment. I think about where Gemini, the light is increasing, but it's just about to start to decrease as we start to moving towards the dark half of the year. So we're still within the lightest half of the year. Light is dominant, light is strong in the sign of Cancer. However, as soon as we go from Gemini into the sign to that 0 degrees of Cancer, the day we hit our longest day of the year here in the Northern Hemisphere. That light that has been growing in strength from 0 Aries now slowly starts to decrease. It's still strong, it's still dominant, but it's slowly starting to drift away. So in the sign of Cancer, we have this place where the light is very strong. There's lots of knowledge, there's lots of information, there's lots of solar energy. However, the dark is slowly starting to creep in. So we introduce the quality of darkness back into the year. So we have really this interplay of both light and dark in the sign of Cancer. And when we talk about light and dark, there's often a preconceived notion of like light is good and dark is bad, and that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about like good and evil, or like you know, good and bad, or like should and shouldn't. We're talking about two different qualities. We could call them feminine and masculine qualities. We could call them yin and yang energies. We could call them assertive and receptive energies. We could call them a knowledge and a knowing energy. We think about the sun, and we think about the eternal energy and like the infinite knowledge and information that can be coming in. Things that are unchangeable. We think about God, the universe, energy that directs, that masculine energy that can come through. The dark, where if the light is associated with knowledge and all-knowing, the dark is associated with material experiences. So it's this life, it's the material world that we are in. It's a receptive, nurturing, feminine type energy. It's the lunar energies. So in Cancer, we're in this place where the light is strong. There's lots of knowledge. There's lots of information. There's lots that has grown. Think about how we've just come through spring. We're coming into the zodiacal summer where things are blooming, things are blossoming. However, it's going to start to tip back into the dark. And there's these cycles. Things always, this is where I come back into the rejuvenation. Because there's cycles. We go from it's just as quickly as that light comes into its full strength and the highest that it possibly can within the arc of the year, it slowly starts to dip back down just as quickly as it got to the top. It's like climbing up a mountain. As soon as you get up to the top and you have nowhere higher to go, the only place to go is back down, right? Like what goes up must come back down. So I just feel like not only are we in a space where we can see the strength of the light and the dark all at one time, we can create something new from that. So when we say rejuvenation emerges, how can you take all of the light, all of the information, all of the knowledge, all of the universal support, all of that infinite Godhead energy, the universe, whatever the word is that works for you, whatever the ideal archetype is, how can you take all of that and bring it down into the material world to start something new, just like the sign of Cancer does. The sign of Cancer represents the moon, so it represents the place of birth. And in the theory where we look at the light and the dark, in ancient teachings, the zero Cancer place was considered to be the gateway of mankind, which the opposite end would be the winter solstice, or zero Capricorn was considered to be the gateway of the gods. So when you think about it that way, you think about zero Capricorn being the place where light starts to come back in. So light was decreasing and was fading into like total darkness, but then at zero Capricorn, we're in the darkest place of the year, but the light slowly starts to creep in. So the gateway of the gods, right? So the gateway of knowledge, of the light. So you think about the light representing that all-powerful God type energy, however that shakes out for you. Zero Capricorn is where we start to introduce the dark energy. It's the gateway of mankind. So if that light energy, that solar energy, takes us into like that higher spiritual realm where things are perfect and all-knowing, or whatever it may be for you, when we come into that material world or into the darkness, we're bringing that down into the material world, and we're bringing it down into our experiences. So I really feel like with Jupiter just recently going through the sign of Gemini and bringing in lots of knowledge and lots of different information and lots of different pieces, you know, Gemini can be a little scattered and can be a little all over, but Jupiter is a planet, is a teacher, right? It brings in knowledge, brings in information, and it brings it in a way that we can learn from it. So it's not always the easiest, but we can learn things that will help us move forward or move on or do whatever the next thing is, or just have that in our repertoire of things that we have come across in our lives to just, you know, throw it in the bag of experiences or whatever. So now in the sign of Cancer, the gateway of mankind, where that darkness starts to come back in and we bring things into a physical incarnation, the sun representing the soul, the purpose, the moon representing the physical body and the environment, or the health and the vitality of the person, the place where the person has come from, brings it down into this physical experience, into this physical world. So I really like this energy of being able to start something new, but bringing it into the physical. So where do you see this rejuvenation emerging in your life? And the rejuvenation, because we've been here before. Every year the sun returns back to zero Cancer. Approximately about once a year, the sun and Jupiter come back into another conjunction. You know, these aspects that we have to the Aries planets, to Saturn and Neptune, those are not necessarily things that happen every year, but they're things that happen within cycles. Everything in the astrological world happens and relies on cycles, and it all relies on this alternation of light and dark and the interplay of the two. And all of the places where light is the strongest, dark is starting to creep back in. The places where the dark is the strongest, the light is slowly starting to creep back in. And you see these themes of light and dark on the light half of the year and the dark half of the year. It's very, very symbolic, but it's very relatable at the same time when you bring it down to an experiential level. So I really like this energy for starting something new, but starting something new within something that has some history. So like something you've been working towards or aspiring towards, or maybe even just something that's been within your sphere. Something where there's some sort of memory body along with it. You know, maybe it's just that you're you're ready to not do what you've been doing in the past before. Maybe that's that's the memory body that you're working off of, is like, this is what I don't want. Other people, it could be like, this is what I do want. So both of those can play here. So, oh, and then we have Mercury moving into Leo, into the place of the sun, right? So this emphasizes that emergent quality that we have within, or the emergence. I'm sorry, not emergent like an emergency, like it's emerging. Leo is not a quiet or a submissive sign. They are loud and proud and passionate, creative, and strong-willed, and there's a mental connection to that energy. So, as we are creating something and we are in the sign of Cancer and we are nurturing and we are bringing together all of the different things, all the different experiences, all the knowledge and all the information, and we are going to see what we can create, what we can nurture. I said this a few weeks ago. What can you midwife while Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer? What can you birth? What can you tend to? And while you are tending to it, what can you learn from at the same time? As we have Mercury moving into the sign of Leo this week, just after the new moon. So, you know, Mercury's still going to be in the sign of Cancer, just kind of upping that Cancerian energy during the new moon here. And then a couple of days later being at that point of moving on. How can you mentally connect to that expressive energy of wanting to connect to the heart space, connect to the sun, connect to that solar quality, and then bringing it into the material world here somehow. So I really like this energy of like bringing and marrying the two of the masculine and the feminine, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, you know, the all the things together. You know, if you if you think about the, even just the picture or the yin-yang image, you know, where you have the light half, but you have the little speck of the dark, and then on the other half, you have the dark half, you have the little speck of the light. So there's always this interplay between the two here. So that is the astrology that we're looking at here for this week, and I really, really like this new moon. I really like the Jupiter conjunction that we have right at the same time. It seems like a moment where many people could start to foster different belief systems or just different ways of thinking or processing things. You know, maybe our worldview starts to change in some sort of way, or there's some sort of process that starts to shift things a little bit. And sometimes I do this when I'm like on my own here, but I don't always necessarily like bring it into the meditation. Sometimes I bring, so we always have, excuse me, we always have the tarot card, right? Like there's always a card pull that goes along with to kind of guide this. So we have the card that we're still going to talk about, but sometimes like my whole bookshelf over here, sometimes I'll open up a book of different varieties and just like randomly flip to a page, you know, and it could be a book where that is just about a specific subject. It could be the Bible, it could be the Bhagavad Gita, it could be an astrological learning book. I just kind of flip to a page and just see if there's anything that just feels like it fits, and usually there does. That's something that was kind of one of the first little, I don't know, divinatory practices that I had that I didn't really realize I had. I used to, like when I was upset about things, I would just like randomly flip through my Bible and then just read whatever my eyes landed on. And it always made sense. So that's really no different to me than pulling like a tarot card, and I hope that doesn't offend anybody. Today, as I was getting ready to start, I pulled out my copy of the Tao Te Ching, and this is not something that I feel well versed on. It's something that I have, you know, contemplated a little bit on. So I'm definitely not like considering myself to, you know, like have any wealth of knowledge or experience when it comes to this text, but I do explore it just a very little bit on my own. And I opened up to verse 21. So I'm just going to read it, and you can just kind of see what pops out at you with it. So this is verse 21 of the Tao Te Ching here. Perfect action, true virtue, supreme power, that is how the Tao is revealed, through those who follow it completely. Though formless and intangible, it gives rise to form. Though vague and elusive, it gives rise to shapes. Though dark and obscure, it is the spirit, the essence, the life breath of all things. But is it real, you ask? I say it's evidence of all of creation. From the first moment to the present, the name has been sounding. It is the gate through which the universe enters, the witness by which this universe sees. How have I come to know all this? That very name told me. That name which is sounding right here, right now. Now for me, if I zone in on the middle part here, though formless and intangible, it gives rise to form. Though vague and elusive, it gives rise to shapes. Though dark and obscure, it is the spirit, the essence, the life breath of all things. That is showing me the opposites coming together here. It is showing me the light and the dark coming together in the way that they work within each other. So what we have brought through from the light, how can we use that when we're in the space of the dark? And then same thing, when we're in the space of the dark, how can we learn things and nurture and foster things that will help us when we get back into the light? And how can we carry pieces of the light with us when we are in the dark, and how can we carry pieces of the dark with us when we are in the light, right? We see this alternation within the zodiacal wheel too. Every other sign is masculine and feminine. So you start with Aries and it's a masculine sign. Then you move to Taurus, it's a feminine sign. Gemini is a masculine sign, so on and so forth. So this alternation of light and dark, it's built into the entire system of astrology, as well as many of the different philosophies and schools of thought. So that rejuvenation that is emerging, it's rejuvenating us. It's bringing us back to a space that we've been to before through these cycles that we are going in. But every time we come back to this space that we've been to before, we are slightly different than we were before, right? We never come back to it in exactly the same way. Like you can never step in the same river twice. You can come right back to that same space, but it's going to be slightly different, right? Like the temperature of the water could be slightly different, or there could be more rocks or less rocks, or fish or things like that. So I just find that we're in a really cool space to kind of like create from being in a place where we can see both. We can slow down. We're just after that summer solstice moment where we pause and we recognize the light, and we see the light, and we feel the light just as it slowly starts to diminish. When we can remember the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine, and then we can create something new, I really feel like that is probably the space where you can create something like that's going to grow really well, right? Like you can bring in all facets, and you're not ignoring anything. So I think we're in a really good space to grow right now. I think we're in a really good space to create things, to nurture things, to move with them, to rejuvenate things, and to emerge from a space where we've been cared for. So that's what I want to bring into our meditation here today. And of course, the card that shows up is no other than the Ace of Cups. We're talking about a cardinal water sign, and we have the Ace of Cups, the cups representing water. It was in the reverse position, so I know that there are a lot of people that have been struggling with these squares that we have had to the sign of Aries here with Neptune and Saturn. Things can feel elusive while we're getting a reality check. How does that work? How can you feel like things are slipping away while reality is right in your face at the same time? That's a difficult place to be in, and we have Jupiter that's went through that. So this is our worldview, and then we have the sun that is now coming through it. This is our soul. This is our purpose. This is that light that we are talking about coming through there. The new moon is pulling away from that. So it's telling us that what we are creating is going to pull us away from that tension energy. Remember that squares challenge us. They challenge us, but they give us a place to grow from. So turning that card right side up. When I saw the Ace of Cups, I was like, yes, of course. Cancer, Ace of Cups. That's where we're at. Okay, so we're going to get ready to move into our meditation. We have our intention up here for another moment here. Rejuvenation emerges. Rejuvenation emerges. Oh, I do want to point out that if I pull the wheel back up here, if we look where the moon is right now, it's at 28 degrees of Taurus and it's applying to Neptune, or sorry, to Uranus. So that energy of doing something different, that energy of moving in a little different way, or thinking or reaching outside of the box, or just having the courage to look at things maybe a little bit differently is built into the energy that we are in right here, right now. So this is coming through here as our meditation is coming, and it's just coming off of that conjunction with Venus in the sign of Taurus. So that was a lovely conjunction that came through later last night. So just pointing out where the moon is at here. Yeah, so we're going to move into our meditation here. I'm going to bring the intention down here. We'll get rid of that. And then you can see our intentional candle, white as always. I don't have much up here right now just because I wanted to kind of clear the space, but I still wanted to bring in some sort of nurturing feminine type energy. So I have my grandmother's bell here, which I use quite often, and then I have a cross that was knitted by a wonderful, wonderful lady. So just a couple feminine energy things here, as well as our candle white. As always, there is sage oil in these candles, as always. I want to create a nice cleansing, purifying space for you to create something for the week, but especially this week as we're talking about the new moon, especially as we're talking about Sun-Jupiter conjunction here, especially as we're talking about Mercury moving signs. We have new cycles starting, we have new places to shift, right? And we have this nurturing, growing energy and this light and dark interplay that we've been talking about here this week. So I really just want to create a clear space for you to just bring in whatever it is that you need to bring in within your meditation. So I'm going to light the intentional candle, and as I do so, I'm going to recite our intentional phrase. Rejuvenation emerges. When I say it, I encourage you to say it along with me, however you are able to. So I'm going to light the intentional candle. And as I light the candle, flame ignites. As the flame ignites, it begins to grow. As the flame begins to grow, so does our intention. Rejuvenation emerges. Rejuvenation emerges. As we are in the place of birth, the place of emerging into this physical body. Remember, we talked about a couple weeks ago about how the sign of Cancer is on the ascendant in the theme of Mundi. That is the hypothetical birth chart of the universe and of the world. It's interesting that it's on the ascendant point, which represents the person within a birth chart, right? It represents the individual because it's that individual being birthed, coming up onto the eastern horizon and being birthed into life, just like the sun births the day as it comes across that eastern horizon. So the sign of Cancer in the moon, excuse me, represents the place of birth and the place of emergence, both through the theme of Mundi and through this new moon and this Sun-Jupiter conjunction that we have. Good places of birthing, emerging, coming through a canal of some kind. If you haven't already, I encourage you to come to a seated, comfortable position. If you're ready to go ahead and close your eyes, go ahead and do so. If you're not quite ready to do that yet, that's okay. And if you don't get to that point, that's okay too. Just try to come to a space where you can try to slow your movements. If you have to get out some wiggles or fidgets first, go ahead. Come to a place of stillness to the best of your ability. Either close your eyes or soften your gaze, not focusing too intently on any one area. Slowly and gently settling into the space. We've talked about a lot, thought about a lot already in the first half of this meditation. So just settling in. and turning your attention to the breath. As you turn your attention to your breath, I encourage you to begin by attempting to not change or alter your breath. For just a moment, see if you can sit with the quality of the breath that you have at this very moment as it is flowing naturally through your body at this time. Here, as you sit with the breath, I encourage you to observe, to acknowledge, and to sit with the breath, but attempt to not change or alter the breath in any way. Noticing what you notice on the inhales and the exhales. As you observe and as you notice, make the attempt to not pass any judgment on the quality of your breath, or the speed, or the intensity. Just noticing what you notice, acknowledging, and honoring where you are at this very moment. When we sit with the breath without changing, altering, or judging the breath, we just sit with where we are at this moment. We find ourselves in a space of honoring, a place of recognizing the path and honoring the level of energy that we've come to this space with. Here, we attempt to be in a space where we are receptive, understanding, and perhaps even guiding and nurturing in a way. Our breath is one of those autonomic functions that happen within our body without us even realizing it. You don't have to remember to breathe throughout the day. There may be times or moments where we need to focus more on our breath, but whether or not you are thinking about the fact that you need to take a breath in and breath out, that inhale and exhale still happens. It happens when you are sleeping and have no conscious awareness of it happening. It happens when you are thinking about something else or focusing on a task that you are completing. However, when we come to a space of quietness, a space where the intention is to connect, perhaps contemplate, perhaps understand, We have the opportunity to nurture and care for our breath. We're able to bring a rejuvenation that can emerge from this space. We can create new cycles, new paths, new experiences, new understandings. Or even just as simple as a moment to connect with ourselves, a moment to slow down. Here this week, we are given multiple moments to slow down, multiple moments to rejuvenate and create a space for something new to emerge. As the sun moves across the early degrees of Cancer, it finds Jupiter. Jupiter, being in one of its preferred signs, is able to protect itself from the blinding light as the sun creeps closer. It's as if Jupiter is standing under an umbrella or has sunglasses on to protect itself from the rays. Until that sun is directly overhead. At this point, each planet is no longer susceptible to the heat or the burning warmth of the sun, but all that is around is illuminated, warmed, held, and strengthened. It's as if when the sun moves across a planet, there is a moment of pure illumination and enlightenment. That light energy, that all-knowing, infinite knowledge, energy of God, of the universe, of our higher selves. It's as if that moment, all of that energy is infused within that planet. Jupiter, the planet of knowledge, wisdom, abundance, and blessings, the teacher of lessons, coming into that empowering moment this week. New insights, new views of the world. New pathways, new philosophies, new structures emerge. A new moon follows in the same sign, a seeding moment. There's a sextile from Mars. There's ambition infused with this new creative energy, this new nurturing energy. Even as we speak, as we meditate here together, the moon is coming into a conjunction with Uranus. Creative forces coming down into this material world. those messages that are coming your way. Take them, remember them. It'll fit in a piece of your puzzle eventually. So here, as we are in this space of creating, I ask you to consider, what have you truly learned over the last year about what you want to create, what you are willing to nurture, what you're willing to put your physical energy into? What are you manifesting in this physical world? Where is Cancer within your chart? There's a correlation there. Meanwhile, there's been difficulties in this place. Mars has retrograded through the sign of Cancer this year, leaving many of us with the Ace of Cups turned upside down, feeling unfulfilled, unsupported, unnurtured, uncared for, feeling that we're on our own. Now is the time to turn that Ace of Cups right side up. Let's take a nice deep breath in together. Breathing in and out. In and out. As we stand in the strength of the light within the zodiacal year, the sun's power is strong, still reaching towards ideals. However, that darkness is slowly starting to creep in. So ever so slowly, bringing that light into the material world. And just as when each and every one of us are born, as we slip further into the material world, we start to lose, forget, or ignore more and more parts of the light, more and more parts of the truth, or that infinite knowledge. Same happens here in the sign of Cancer. That light is strong, but it is now time to bring that into the material world. Some parts of the infinite knowledge may begin to slip away, but your experiences, your expectations, your philosophies, that which you hold yourself to, remains. I cannot wait to see what every single individual creates while Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer. Some lessons may be easier than others. The abundance and the blessings may be easier in some situations than others. But in the place of the divine feminine, in the place of the moon, in the place of the mother, we can nurture and foster an energy that can grow from a little seedling into a beautiful tree. So as we end this meditation, I ask you, what is your tree that you are in the process of building? Let's take one last deep breath in together, breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And with that last exhale, if you haven't already, slowly blinking your eyes open. If it doesn't feel like your eyes are quite ready to open yet, you can take your palms and put them over your eyes and just slowly bring yourself back to the material world after being in a place of the light. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate all of you as always. One more reminder that we will not be here next week, so we will reconvene the following week. That is the first weekend of July, so that would be July 6th. So July 29th, no meditation. July 6th, we will be back here. There will still be a weekly video for next week, so you will still have that astrological breakdown. Next week, we have Venus and Uranus coming together in a conjunction just before Venus moves into the sign of Gemini. So there's definitely some inspiring, shifting energy. Venus within its own place has been very, very lovely. And we still have some more time of Venus in the sign of Taurus. So let's all enjoy that. And then Venus will move into the sign of Gemini, where there will be more information and more ideas and more communications. Venus in Gemini is very, very social and very, very communicative. So get ready to communicate and speak up on what you desire and what you want to bring in, and where you within harmony. You know, wanting to speak in a way that can be fluent but peaceful at the same time. So that's a good time for communications. All right. Thank you everybody for being here. Appreciate all of you as always. Hope you got something wonderful from this meditation, and I will see you next time. Have a great week. Happy new moon. Hope everybody had a wonderful solstice weekend, and I will see you next weekend for the weekly video, and then I will see you the following weekend here for meditation. So yeah, happy days, and I hope everybody has a wonderful week. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and